So you had a very significant thing happen in your life quite a few years ago. Why don't you talk to us about it? Tell us what happened.
It was December of 1987. I was living in a large Victorian-style house near downtown Grand Rapids. And I was living with 3 other housemates. There was 2 girls and 1 guy, John. Well, John and I were the only ones home. And John asked to borrow my car, so I ran upstairs to grab the keys. And I heard noises coming out of Suzanne's room. And I approached the door, and suddenly it flung open, and there was a man with a knife.
With a knife?
Yes. And he began walking towards me and stabbing me at the same time.
Stabbing you where?
Mostly my hands. I was going like this.
You were trying to defensive posture.
Yeah,
he's
he
stabbing
was going
you
like this.
Okay.
Exactly. So then he backed me into my bedroom. John heard my screams, came running up the stairs, threw him down on the floor, but he began to stab John.
He's now stabbing John.
Correct. Then the attacker, he stood back and looked at both of us. And John yelled at him. He said, "Get out and leave us alone." And then the attacker went down the stairs.
He left?
Well, he thought,
or so it
maybe.
seemed, yeah.
So, and then John got up and he told me to call the police. And he went down the stairs. I have a phone right there in my room, but I was too scared.
Well, you were freaked out.
Well, I thought if he heard me call, he might just come up and kill me right there in my bedroom. So I decided to make a run for it. I started running down the stairs, and shortly after I did, I heard footsteps behind me. And then I tried to make it out. There was a door that led out into the driveway. Oh, yeah. Yes. And there was a door. I tried to make it out into the driveway. Right before I reached the door, he caught me, and he began cutting my throat.
Cutting your throat?
Yes. Yes. And then I was trying to fight him off, and after a couple minutes, I was too weak to move or fight him anymore, and I said, "All right, I'm dead."
That's what you said to
him?
I'm
and
dead.
And I thought I was, just about to be. And he let me fall, and then he went out the back door. Now, meanwhile, John had gone out to the intersection there to get help. And it was shortly after that that they caught our attacker. And so, well, when all was said and done, John was stabbed 6 times, and he's okay.
Not seriously injured, then he was able to recover from that fine.
Right. I was stabbed 27 times. And it was due to severe blood loss that caused my paralysis then from the chest down. Now, our attack...
He didn't hit your spinal column, it was just blood loss.
Correct. It suffocated my spinal cord.
Suffocated your spinal cord.
Correct. Now, our attacker, Tanner, he was sentenced to life in prison with 2 counts of assault with intent to murder.
You wake up in the hospital. You've lost the use of your legs now. So before we go any further with this, let's jump back before the attack. You were how old at that time?
27.
27.
No, I'm 24. Sorry.
You were 24.
Yeah.
Well, you're old now and you forget, so it's all right.
It's 27 years. Okay.
So, what was going on in your life just prior to the attack?
In the 2 years prior to the knife attack, I had become very depressed. A relationship failed. I thought myself to be a person of little to no value. I didn't think anybody cared if I lived or died. I had no close relationships with anybody, and I contemplated suicide daily. So I concentrated. I was working 2 jobs at the time, and I was concentrating on my appearance, exercise to stay in shape, bought nice clothes.
Looking good.
Oh, yeah. And then I made sure I went to church every weekend, but I drank a lot. And
in church? Or are you, okay, never mind. All right.
Yeah. But I looked good on the outside, but inside I felt so empty.
You're thinking about suicide.
Right.
Daily.
Right.
So you're at a low place in your life anyhow, and then you get this attack. Then you kind of had a remarkable experience in the hospital. Talk about what happened there.
in the hospital, there were so many visitors that came to see me and my family. And cards, letters, and gifts poured in from people everywhere. And I thought, nobody cared about me. And there were so many people that we didn't know that was doing all this. And I began to realize that I am a person of worth, and my life is important.
So, I mean, you're in there now paralyzed from the waist down. You've been stabbed 27 times, brutally. But you have this kind of transition. You begin to realize there's value. So there's something good happening. You're moving from, I want to die, to, I want to live.
Right.
Okay, so, I mean, that almost sounds weird, doesn't it? I mean, usually you expect the opposite, but you had this amazing experience. But let's just dig a little deeper here. Wasn't there some anger?
I was very angry. I was angry at my attacker. I was angry at God. I was grieving over becoming paralyzed.
So on the one hand, you're like, I want to live, but you've got this other part, which is all of us, isn't it? Kind of we're all this mixture of stuff. So you're pretty angry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I saw a counselor then at the rehab center, and which helped. And in talking to her, I just began to sob. Those sobs that just come deep from the gut. And that helped. It helped me heal, a lot of that grief. But I instinctively knew I needed to forgive my attacker.
You knew?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Of course, you'd had a Christian upbringing. You understood that was part of the way it went, but you also knew you needed that for your sake.
Right. Exactly. I was not well in that area.
All this stuff going on the inside.
Mm-hmm. A lot of anger.
What did you do?
Well, I decided I needed to forgive him. And so the problem was my emotions weren't lining up with that choice.
So you said, I choose to forgive him.
Right.
But your emotions weren't lining up.
No. And it felt like, well, if I forgive him and let go of this anger and resentment, then he's getting away with it.
You ever felt that?
Or that somehow it made it okay, what happened.
Forgiving it's kind of like approval. It doesn't matter. It's okay.
Right, right. But it's an illusion to think that my anger and resentment towards him is somehow hurting him. It's not affecting him. It's affecting me.
Yeah.
And I learned that what I need to do is redirect that energy in prayer to God. And then let God handle the situation as he sees fit in that other person's life as well as mine. And it's very freeing.
Yeah. So you made that choice. Didn't happen overnight. You had to keep working through the process, that emotional, that churning going on the inside.
Right.
What's life like for you these days? How do you see God at work?
Well, life for me these days, I've been married for 21 years. I have 2 grown kids and 2 grandkids. I work part-time for a bank in customer service, and I volunteer here some with the children's ministry. And now as far as, and also I've lost some of my independence, so I need more help in some ways that I didn't before, but that's okay. And also I see God at work through the many relationships, the wonderful relationships that I have now that I wouldn't have had it not been for the knife attack. I wouldn't have met my husband or the kids, or have my 2 service dogs, and also in the many good friendships that I have. So there's a lot of blessings that really, in a way, have come out of it. Another thing that I want is when people see me, I want them to see that life is good. I saw this emblem on the back of a vehicle that said life is good. And that made me reflect on my own life. And I thought, you know what? My life is good. So I went and got that emblem, put it in the back of my van. And what I wanted was, you know, if people see that, and especially seeing a woman in a wheelchair and says life is good, I want them to reflect on their own life.
Maybe
and
not
say,
as bad as they thought.
Well, and say, you know what?
Yeah.
My life is good.
Yeah. You know, you wheel in here in the back and you sit in the back and you're all quiet. I think sometimes we don't know the heroes in our midst because you still carry the scars on your hands and arms, and I would imagine your throat as well, from an attack that could have left you in a place of bitterness and ongoing pain and anger, and this happens to people. But you came to that place and you took the direction that God calls us to. Forgive anyone, anything. And what you're telling us is now, this over 25 years gone by, that was the right choice. Life is good.
Yes.
When I think of Joan Wegner,
Yes.
I think Braveheart. Thank you for coming and sharing with us, Joan.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.